So I was thinking about this story from a number of years ago when we still lived out in British Columbia. Before, we might not even have been dating at this time. And I was driving, because I'm from California, I was driving from California to British Columbia, was interning with a ministry that we were both working with, interning for, attending a school of ministry, that kind of stuff through this particular ministry. And I was praying, interceding ceaselessly for the 20 minutes that I was reminded driving up to the border, coming up. And I was going, oh God, I'd left everything. I had literally left house, home, family, land, all that stuff that Jesus says, and went to Canada, to the Vancouver area to work with this ministry to respond to the call of God on my life. So I left everything. There was great cost. And I remember driving up to the border, praying that God would lead me to the perfect person, like the person that had favor for me and all that kind of stuff.
The border guard.
The border guard, yes, sorry, the border guard, yeah. The border guard, so that I wouldn't have a problem going through the border, because I'd had some issues. The border guards can ask you all the questions, all that
and
stuff.
You need the right
paperwork, all that stuff. Yeah. So I was just, God, put favor in the heart of the person that I'm going to come up to, help me to choose the right lane, all this stuff, just praying some of those desperation prayers sometimes. And I remember it dawned on me in the middle of that, as I was praying, that what I was asking God to do was to, before the foundation of the world, determine someone's... Erin thinks this is dramatic, and it is, but it's true. Sometimes dramatic things can be true, too.
That's true.
So I was essentially praying that from before the foundation of the world, God would ordain someone's family line, because he respects free will and our choices. God would ordain someone's family line so much so that throughout all of history, everything would work together to produce this one person of a border guard that would be there in that moment to have, of his own free will or her own free will, the volition to give me favor and let me through. So I was asking for something, and then not even that, but I was also asking that the manager would be produced in such a way throughout all of human history, produce someone who on that day would have orchestrated the shift changes and everything in such a way to give the person that had been orchestrated from the foundation of the world with the right favor in their heart to let me through. And I was asking for something far bigger than I thought I was asking for. Because God wouldn't just go, God wouldn't just go, okay, force you to have favor for that person, because he has given us free will in our choices and respects those things. So I was asking for a much bigger thing than I realized. And in the moment, I realized that even though I was asking for this huge thing, God would still do that. Mm-hmm. So at great cost of leaving everything, there was also the promise of God to care for me, to walk with me, and to get me from it. Like John Paul Jackson used to say, God will get you... God will move heaven and earth to get you where he wants you to be, if you're where he wants you to be.
Yeah.
Right? And I just loved that. And I realized in the moment that he would do that because he loves me and because he cares about my destiny, and he's determined that I have a destiny.
Yeah. Well, I really I laugh because it is a dramatic perspective. But
I think dramatic sometimes.
Well, and we also serve a dramatic God. If you read the Bible, there's some pretty dramatic stuff.
That's right.
Splitting an ocean is fairly dramatic.
Yeah.
That's not a small act.
Right.
It's pretty big.
You could have just gone, whoop, whoop, we're going to move you from here to there.
You could have just, I think getting people over an ocean, other than it's dramatic.
Yeah, that's right.
But the crazy, what I love about it, though.
Sea.
Oh my goodness. What I love about it, though, is it just speaks to the bigness of God. That I think that's the mystery. That, whatever I can think of big in my mind, I know my brain understands God is infinitely larger. So infinitely large that I can't wrap my mind around how large he is. And the really cool thing is he takes each one of us, and we are that border guard in someone else's story.
Yeah.
He uses us
right.
in the same way. And what I've been thinking about is just the, like I will speak for myself. I can focus so heavily on the cost of following the gospel and the effort that it takes to follow the gospel because, some seasons it feels really easy and effortless, and other seasons it feels like a lot of work, and you have to really fight to stay on that path. And personally, I've been in kind of a fighting season for a while now, and so I'm like acutely aware of the effort. And when I'm in the right, when I am putting my effort into spending time with the Lord and meditating on his word and things he says, the great thing is as acutely aware as I am of the effort it's taking, I'm even more aware of the promises that are there for me, that effort is leading me into. And I think it can be so easy to get wrapped up in the cost and the effort. And we need to equally or even more so focus on the promises, because there's a huge why all the effort, what compels me, There's something that has my whole life. I could tell a bunch of stories, but like many others, I've had definitely moments, especially in my past, where I just thought like, I think I'm just going to kind of like gave it a shot. See you later, God.
Right.
Like this was a good run. I think I'm done now, especially kind of for me, like in my early 20s. But something within me, which I now know is my spirit, compelled me to keep going.
Right.
Even if I kind of quit and gave up my effort per se, something in me wouldn't let me like cut that rope that connected me to the Lord.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's a good place to live in.
Right.
I think there's so much more for us. And I was living, it wasn't like a great space to be in, but it was because I couldn't cut that tie. Something in me would not allow me to cut that tie.
Yeah.
And now in retrospect, I can see, like, I'm so glad I didn't do that, because I've been just kind of meditating lately on the promises. So, and doing outreaches with people who don't know the Lord, don't even know church, have no relationship. There's no tie for them. What that's allowed me to see is that there are tons of people who actually don't know that you can live a life without chaos.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that, because I was blessed to be raised in a Christian household where on some level I knew that God was real, and I knew that I could ask him for stuff, and I knew that I could pray. And there are so many people who really do not know that they have access to the one who created a spirit of peace. And so when we say to them, can I bless you with a spirit of peace? And then we pray over them, we impart that peace to them, and they can feel it. It's like their minds are blown, because they did not know that was available. And that's an example of one of the many promises of God, that when we are in a hard season, when we are struggling to have hope, when our life is filled with chaos, either self-inflicted or external, that happens, we have access to peace beyond understanding.
That's right.
We don't need to understand the peace in our mind. We don't need to be able to logically convince ourselves why or why not we have peace. It's a spirit. It transcends logic. It transcends our mind. It's literally there for us as sons and daughters of God. And that's part of the hope that's in Jesus.
Right.
So I want to encourage all of you that if you're in that season where you're kind of clinging on to that rope, or if you're in a good season, be aware of the promises. When you're in an easier season, or in a really encouraged season, or a season of joy, that's the time to dig in and meditate on those scriptures, so that when you find yourself in a harder season, it comes easily.
Right.
Those things come to memory because you've spent time filling yourself with them, right? It's not going to be as much work to go searching out promises. And if you're in a hard season and you don't have that buildup of promises, that's okay too. Just go searching for them. They're there.
Right.
They're not hard to find in the Bible.
Right.
There's a lot of them. Or ask someone to help you.
Yeah.
But they're there, and there's always hope. There's always all these good things. It says God works together all things for good.
For the good of those who love
him.
him.
I kind of butchered that, but
close enough.
you get the point. that means through some dramatic, crazy way,
Yeah.
God is going to take all our mishaps, all our mistakes, all the times we've messed it up in the past, and he somehow works those out for the good of those who love him.
Yeah.
All you have to do is love the Father, and that's a promise.
Yeah. That's
I mean, that's pretty incredible. Like when I think about ways that I have hurt other people or ways that I have messed up, the fact that a God would orchestrate it so that those things now become my good and redeem them, and for other people that he would redeem that, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's not just a get out of jail free card either.
No, it's not.
Yeah, well, I was really mean with them, but that's just going to turn out to be their good anyway.
Yeah, we can't use it as a cop-out. Recently, I heard someone speak on that verse, and they pointed out that that verse applies to the past, not the future.
Right.
So it's in a past tense. So we can't use it as a, well, I'm going to do this now, but it's okay because in the future, God will work it out. Yeah. He was saying, this is for the past. This is knowing like you're on this path now, and guess what? It's okay. God doesn't view you like how you view yourself in the past.
That's right.
He sees you as his child. He sees all the potential within you. And he's actually going to take all those things and redeem them for your good and the good of the people that you affected.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.